to the seminar presentation of the winter semester 21-22, the Seminar TOPOS, which is going to be conducted in English by Helen and myself and Vera Bühlmann. We make the introduction very brief, but we would like to start by picking up the core notion of this seminar, which is that of a place. Topos means place, and the way that we want to think of it in this seminar is nicely put by Werner Hamacher, who is a philologist, who said place is not only something discrete, it is discretion itself. Our focus will be on how to think of such acts of discretion from a mathematical side and from an aesthetics side. It is what we mean with the digital as a continent in an ocean of information, let's say. The key figure is that of an anaphora, so of a kind of a boundedness which has two sides, a boundary towards the inside where it contains nothing. This is important because it organizes our interest with the mathematical readings we're doing, and towards the outside it bounds against the indefinite.
Yeah, and we will be starting with a text from Virginia Woolf in the 1920s called To the Lighthouse. And this lighthouse is an interesting figure. The novel there are not so many dramatic events in this novel, but the way that Woolf plays with the perspective and the way that the lighthouse somehow figures as something. We don't need to be precise about what this lighthouse is figuring, but the way that the lighthouse is, it's abstract and somehow elucidating. Throwing light on, and this gesture of throwing light on is interesting. So this is from a literary text we will start, and then we will proceed by looking at some mathematical texts. And this is a picture here of the lighthouse in Godrevy Island in Cornwall, which was the inspiration for Woolf's text. So it's a fantastic lighthouse. So with this aim, the seminar proceeds twofold. It revisits the topos of abstraction through the lens of mathematical thinking via a series of readings of key texts from philosophy, mathematics, semiotics, and computation. And it revisits in parallel the ancient topoi of a house of intellect and a house of wisdom. The former via a literary text by Woolf, as I have just explained, and the latter via a compendium from the 9th century, the Book of Knowledge of Ingenious Mechanical Devices, that emerged out of the Baghdad House of Wisdom around the mathematician Al-Khwarizmi. I knew I would say this wrong, sorry. To whom we owe the introduction of algebra as a proper mathematical domain.
The readings we're going to do, weekly readings, are organized like these.
So we have text from Alfred North Whitehead, The Abstract Nature of Mathematics. We move to Heinrich Wölfflin, Brian Rotman, Mathematical Movement and Gesture. We will think at the beginning here about the figure of the zero, the cipher. How might this relate back to thinking about this lighthouse, for example? Then we will look at this book from Lancelot Hogben, Mathematics for the Millions. And in this text, he is looking at, as you can see, math in ancient antiquity, and the idea of a poetics of measure. How could we have a poetics of measure? What would that mean? And then a grammar of size, order, and shape. So the idea of a grammar can mean more than this system in language. Rotman, this other text from Rotman, signifying nothing, the semiotics of zero. This is where this figure of the zero is explicitly explored. And then Ivan Illich in the Vineyard of Text, Reading Towards Wisdom, and Wilhelm Worringer, Empathy and Abstraction.
Yes, so what crystallizes out of this selection of texts is precisely the space we are interested in, namely between aesthetics and abstraction in a formal, in a mathematical way. Wilhelm Worringer's book, with which we start, no, actually it's in the end of our line, opened up a way to relate to geometrical abstractions, not as a counterpoint to empathy, but as a means to engage with them. And this is what we are interested in. But what we are also interested in is to complement this empathy notion, an aesthetical empathy notion, with an active notion of rhetorics. So while art history has produced kind of a psychological and psychophysical discourse on form in the terms of Einfühlung, we want to look through mathematical thinking at what we can call a bodiliness of eloquent mentality. So this is a discourse which looks at ornament in its rhetorical functions that are ethically constitutive, no? for a time, for a culture. So not just a decoration that kind of makes the price to buy it go high, but in a more profound and a more historical notion. And interesting for us will be how it relates to the body in terms of rhythms. No? So rhythms which are not themselves gained from abstract proportions, but which kind of produce a tuning with how we as human bodies can feel in an environment. With this, we have the interest on cyclical reasoning, so circular reasoning, and that is where this emphasis on algebra and on the zero is coming from. We will give you a list of background texts. They are too much and too many to deal with in the seminar, but they can help you guide your seminar paper, which you are going to write. And what we would suggest as a motto for these seminar papers is somehow to engage with these texts that we are reading in a weekly way, perhaps through the imaginary of a lighthouse on a digital continent. So to say the digital itself is not the house, this is a more usual thinking about the architectonics of information, but rather the digital is, so this island itself is a kind of a continent in the oceans of information, and how then to think of architecture in that. And this architecture would be the structure of an argument you develop in your papers. It is a creatively set up course, but we want to really learn the craftsmanship of working with discourse, with text, with arguments, with voices, with the structuring of an argument, but in a lively topic which is picking up contemporary concerns. We look very forward to meeting you. Thanks for watching.